This newscast is brought to you by the only and always Pure 4G.
Today on Rappler.
If you make a living online,
Yes.
if you write online, if you blog, if you're an online journalist, then that poses a real danger to you.
Criminal law professor Ted Tess says the cybercrime law violates freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and the principle of double jeopardy. Malacanang tells cyber law critics, wait for the implementing rules and regulations. And a group calling itself Anonymous Philippines hacked 7 websites to protest the new law. Hello, I'm Maria Ressa. Welcome to Rappler, your social news network. 2 senators move a step closer to changing the controversial Cybercrime Prevention Act. Senator Chafisto Gingona III files a petition before the Supreme Court seeking to void provisions he says infringe on the freedom of speech. Gingona was the lone dissenter of the bill in the Senate. Senator Francis Escudero says he did not notice the online libel provision and wants to remove the imposition of criminal liability.
Nakalusot sa amin yun. Hindi ko nakita yon nung kami bumoto at pumirma sa committee report.
Sir, ba't nakalusot yun nung inyong niratify yung BICAM report?
Ayoko magbigay ng anuman dahilan o motibo. Maaminin ko na lamang siguro ang aming pagkukulang. Personally, kaugnay nun, hindi ako makapagsalita sa ibang senador. Nakalusot sa amin yon.
Media groups and lawyers slammed the bill, saying it undermines efforts to decriminalize libel. Several petitions were filed before the Supreme Court this week against the law. Criminal law professor Ted Tess says the cybercrime law violates the Constitution, including freedom of speech and the principle of double jeopardy. He adds the law poses a real danger to online professionals.
In short, the law basically offends the Constitution, particularly the right to freedom of expression, freedom of the press, double jeopardy. Many portions of this law are actually in violation of the Constitution.
The revised penal code is basically just transposed onto the
Yes.
internet, and there are larger penalties.
1 degree higher. The cybercrime law says it will be punished 1 degree higher. Now, whatever the penalty for conventional, I just use that word, conventional libel is,
Yes.
all you do is transpose it and make it heavier by 1 degree. 1 degree would here would mean six years up to maybe 8 years
In prison.
in prison.
Right.
If you make a living online,
Yes.
if you write online, if you blog, if you're an online journalist, then that poses a real danger to you, different from what the revised penal code already provides.
Tess says his research shows the original proponent of the law was former President Gloria Arroyo.
One interesting thing that I saw when I was doing some research on this was one of the House bills that
Yes.
became the basis of this law was actually attributable to former President Gloria Arroyo
How fascinating.
in Congress.
Yes.
And she was one of the sponsors of this law. I think, if my research is correct, Congressman Dato Arroyo was also part of the original proponents of this law.
Lawyers and media groups are asking the Supreme Court to stop the implementation of questionable provisions of the law. Tess says he hopes the courts, under new Chief Justice Maria Lourdes Sereno, will give a clear substantive ruling. He notes this is the first major controversy Sereno will face.
We're talking about a Chief Justice who's young enough to have experienced the conventional way of expressing yourself and the newer ways of expressing yourself. So I'm hoping that that perspective spreads and that she's able to influence the court to say that, hey, this is a very important issue.
Yes. Malacanang appeals to groups opposing the cybercrime law to wait for the implementing rules and regulations, but stresses it respects their decision to question it before the Supreme Court. In a press briefing Thursday, presidential spokesperson Edwin Lacerda stresses the need for responsibility when writing in cyberspace.
What is the position of government? The position of government is, look, we already have responsibilities attached to print, TV, and radio So, ang ginawa ng Cybercrime Act is to also attach responsibilities in cyberspace. And I think more than anybody else, the journalists are very responsible when it comes to writing articles. They know the parameters. Ang concern lang naman dito sa cyberspace are the people who are not familiar with being responsible about what they write.
A group calling itself Anonymous Philippines hacks into websites of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas and the Metropolitan Waterworks and Sewerage System Wednesday night to protest the new cybercrime law. The hackers say the law effectively ends freedom of expression in the Philippines. In its message on the front page of the two government websites, the group calls the cybercrime law, quote, the most notorious act ever witnessed in the cyber history of the Philippines. BSP regains control of its homepage at 12:26 a.m. Thursday. The group also targets websites of the Philippine Anti-Piracy Team, American Chamber of Commerce in the Philippines, Department of Environment and Natural Resources Region 3, the Health Department's Smoke-Free Program, and the Institute for Development and Econometric Analysis. Escudero stopped short of confirming he is running under both President Aquino's and Vice President Binay's senatorial slates in 2013. During the Kapihan sa Senado press forum, the senator says he already had informal talks with the ruling Liberal Party and the United Nationalist Alliance and is just waiting for the official announcements from the two groups. He adds party politics is not a factor in the ballot.
Bagaman meron na kaming informal na usapan, kaugnay ng bagay na yan, mas pipiliin ko siguro na sila at mas bagay at dapat naman siguro sila ang mag-anunsyo ng kanilang slate at hindi manggaling sa akin. Hindi, dahil sa tingin ko naman hindi bumoboto ang botante base sa partidong kinabibilangan ng isang kandidato. Ang bumoboto palagi ang botante base sa kandidato mismo at kung anong pinangahawakan niyang mga prinsipyo, paniniwala at plataforma at hindi kung ano ang partidong dinadala niya o kasalukuyang kinabibilangan niya.
Monsignor Cristobal Garcia of the Cebu Archdiocese faces a probe over allegations he abused children when he was based in the United States 3 decades ago. Cebu Archdiocese spokesman Monsignor Achilles Dakay says the Vatican suspended Garcia in June. Garcia is also allegedly involved in the illegal trade of African ivory by collecting religious icons made of tusks. The government says there will be no compromise deal on the tax evasion case against former Chief Justice Renato Corona, his daughter, and son-in-law. Bureau of Internal Revenue Commissioner Kim Anares says we don't enter into a plea bargaining or compromise agreement in criminal cases. Last month, the BIR filed a 150.68 million peso tax evasion case against Corona, his daughter Maria Carla Castillo, and son-in-law Constantino Castillo III after they allegedly failed to disclose their taxable income for various years. Philex Mining Corporation, the country's poster firm for responsible mining, says it will exhaust all administrative remedies to contest the billion-peso fine for the tailings leak at its only operating mine, including responding to Mines and Geosciences' letter on the massive fines for the tailings pond leak at Padcal Mine in Benguet Province. Philex Senior Vice President Mike Toledo says going to court is a last resort, but first things first, we will contest the 1 billion peso fine of MGB. Philex has 7 days to respond to the September 26 letter of the MGB. Foreign Secretary Albert Del Rosario says the only viable way to resolve the territorial dispute with China over the South China Sea is a rules-based approach respecting international law. He says the Philippines is committed to building an international system that will be just and fair to all states, regardless of economic size or power. Del Rosario says Manila is implementing a comprehensive foreign policy approach that involves political, diplomatic, and legal avenues. He says the Philippines is at, quote, a very challenging moment in its relations with China, but says a territorial row, quote, does not constitute the sum total of our relations with Beijing. Japan's Prime Minister Yoshihiko Noda insists Wednesday that there can be no compromise with China on the ownership of a disputed island chain and denounces attacks on Japanese interests. Speaking to reporters at the UN General Assembly in New York, Noda says China misunderstands the issues at stake. He says The Senkaku Islands are an integral part of our territory in the light of history and of international law. He demands an end to threats against Japanese citizens and business interests in China by nationalist protesters. Chinese government ships have sailed into waters around the disputed islands in recent days. Coast Guard vessels from Japan and Taiwan dueled with water cannon after dozens of Taiwanese fishing boats escorted by patrol ships sailed into waters around the Tokyo-controlled islands for several hours. Well, let's now look at Rappler's Wrap for today, a list of the 10 most important events around the world you shouldn't miss. At number 3, rebel fighters attacked the army headquarters in the center of Damascus, showing sophistication and reach that has grown in the 18-month conflict. Syria's government and main international supporters, Iran and Russia, say the rebels are financed and supported by other countries. At the United Nations General Assembly, the United States snubs the speech of Iran's President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, who says, quote, uncivilized Zionists were a continued threat to Iran and slammed the West's, quote, nuclear intimidation. At number 7, Japanese scientists say they finally created one of the elements missing from the periodic table of elements, number 113. Not found naturally on Earth, element 113 is an atom with 113 protons in its nucleus. It was created at the Riken Nishina Center for Accelerator-Based Science in Japan, and if validated, would be the first element discovered in Asia. It gives Japan naming rights to an element of the periodic table, the first time for any Asian nation. At number 8, would you like to see the Mona Lisa at least 10 years younger? Well, that's exactly what the Mona Lisa Foundation says you can do when you look at the Isleworth Mona Lisa. The foundations claim this painting is an earlier painting of Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa and predates the masterpiece by at least a decade based on regression tests. Experts who studied the painting say the woman in the Isleworth painting is in her 20s. The famous Mona Lisa is in her 30s. Other experts question the Isleworth painting's authenticity. At number 9, Hong Kong property magnate Cecil Chow Si-chung announced a $65 million bounty to any man who could woo and win his daughter, Gigi Chow. The bounty was announced after his daughter, a 33-year-old University of Manchester graduate, reportedly wed her longtime girlfriend in a civil partnership in France. And at number 10, there's a new camera that allows you to shoot and then adjust the focus later. The telescope-shaped camera uses light field technology to allow the focal point of a digital image to be changed after the picture is taken. Called Lightro, the camera uses powerful sensors to capture significantly more light than a conventional camera. For the full top 10, visit Rappler.com's The Wrap. The Football for Peace campaign of the Philippine Marines has brought hope to poor, war-torn areas in Sulu. Meet Sharifa May Jamu, a Sulu football player who dares to dream. Voltaire Tupas reports.
A 14-year-old Tausug wants to be the first Maldita from Sulu. Sharifa May Jamu was a ball boy who retrieved loose balls for other kids who played football. At 13, she joined the Football for Peace trainings of the Marines in her war-torn village in Sulu. Sharifa May's parents are farm workers in a coconut plantation. The Marines, the Tausug community, and strangers helped send her to a school in Zamboanga City. In school, Sharifa May continues to play the sport she loves. She stands out and dominates games. She dreams of joining the women's national team. Her coach thinks she has a chance.
Si May ang nag-excel talaga in terms na scoring namin. Meron nga pumunta dito na kasama ko rin, sabi niya, gusto niya nga daw ipakita doon sa team manager ng Malditas, si May, kasi nakikita niya may potential talaga doon si May. Kahit ako, nakikita ko talaga kasi na 14 pa lang siya ngayon, pero iba na talagang laro ni May compared mo sa ibang mga babaeng naglalaro.
No less than the captain of the Malditas is touched by Sharifa May's story.
She has a great story. It's inspiring that people would want the younger generation to aspire to become a Maldita. And I think that's what we are doing right now, opening the doors for girls to try to make the national team as their end goal in playing football.
Benitez says if Sharifa May continues to train, she has a shot at making a career out of football.
You know, she will make it to the national team if she continues to play football. She continues to get that good training.
What drives Sharifa May? This 14-year-old wants to rescue her family from poverty and conflict.
Ang pangarap ko po, maiahon po sila sa hirap. Yung hindi po lagi inaapi ng tao. Yun po, gusto ko pong parang may magrespeto sa pamilya ko. Siyempre, pag mahirap ka po, parang ibaba yung tingin sa'yo. Yun po. Gusto ko po parang maiba yung tingin nila sa mga mahihirap. Parang ipapakita ko po sa kanila na yung tao, mahirap yung tao, pero meron po yan silang talent. Kaya po ng football, yun po ang talent ko.
The Malditas captain says it takes a ball to help boost the confidence of a kid, build her character, and change her life. Voltaire Tupaz, Rappler, Manila.
Many kids in Sulu share Sharifa May's story and her passion for football. They inspired the 2,000 Balls for Peace campaign launched by Rappler in July 2012 in partnership with the Marines. To date, the drive has collected 1,205 balls. Every story on Rappler has its own mood meter, which gives you 8 emotions to choose from. When you click on how you feel, your vote goes to the front page, the middle of the front page, the mood navigator here. And if you take a look at it, it takes the top 10 stories with the most number of clicks and crowdsources the mood of the day. Today's stories, today on the Wrap, Al-Qaeda's black flag seized in the Philippines, Clinton links Qaeda to Libya attack, 67% afraid. That was a Rappler exclusive. Smartphone sales surge. Philippines top Southeast Asia. 326% growth. 48% amused. 32% happy. And the story that happened last night, one of our top stories today. Websites hacked in protest versus the new law. 70% happy, contributing to the mood of the day. Today, most people are happy. Well, that's Rappler's Newscast for today, Thursday, September 27, 2012. Visit Rappler.com and watch our newscast Monday to Friday. Tell us how you feel on our mood meter and help us crowdsource the mood of the day. I'm Maria Ressa. As we say at Rappler, tomorrow begins today.
This newscast is brought to you by the only and always Pure 4G.